Welcome to the special meeting of Kimberley City Council for Tuesday, February the 17th, held here on the homeland of the Ktunaxa peoples. We have Councillor McGuire joining us online tonight. Hi, Woody. And Councillor Dunneback is away this evening. And good evening, councillors and staff who are here this evening as well. So we have kind of a singular purpose to the meeting tonight, and that is the next piece of our financial plan deliberations. We have a number of motions, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them to be exact. And similar to what we've done previously, we'll take those one at a time as we're going through the presentation, if that's okay with you, Krista. And we'll start out though by receiving the Chief Financial Officer's presentation. Councillor McBain moves, Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried.
And if we missed the adopt agenda.
Okay. We just changed the order.
Sure.
Yeah, we didn't miss anything. Okay, we need an adoption of the agenda that we're already into. Councillor Fox moves and Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Sorry about that. A little anxious to get going. All right, Krista, over to you.
You want to do the motion first or?
We did.
They just did the agenda. We did.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we did the first motion. Yep. Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and
Welcome,
Council.
Krista.
If we can pull the presentation up, Maurice, and we'll get that started. Yeah, so this is about our fourth budget presentation for the 2026 to 2030 financial plan.
Thanks for the text.
And this evening, we're just going to be reviewing some additional adjustments that to the proposed budget that has been presented previously. And so we have a bit of agenda this evening. If we, let's see if this.
This agenda is.
Yeah, and this TV is not up either.
Not on.
No.
You probably know this by heart anyway.
Well, I'll keep moving along here as that's warming up here. But yeah, this evening we're looking at some adjustments to previously approved budget proposals for 2026. So we'll be looking at some additional capital and non-capital project adjustments, as well as some operating budget adjustments, and then taking a look at how that impacts the property tax increase for 2026, as well as how that impacts the financial plan. And then taking a look at the proposed 2026 aquatic center parcel tax, and then just a quick introduction to what we're expecting for the wastewater treatment plant parcel tax. Well, let's try this. Nope. I'll get you to click through the next one, Marie. So let's first take a look at what was approved on December 1st under the capital and non-capital plan. The full document goes into detail as to which projects were approved for 2026. And then we also had approval for a reserve fund transfer to fund the water tender. So I've noted that on this slide as well. So if we take a look at the next slide, the first column indicates what was previously approved on December 1st. We have for all funds there the $45 million. And so that was the amount that was previously approved. And then tonight we're going to take a look at the next three columns. So the carry forward adjustments, the budget changes, and as well as the new additions. And for resulting total adjustment for capital or total proposed budget for capital projects in 2026 totaling $46 million. So let's take a look at these in greater detail. We'll look at the carry forward adjustments first on the next slide. So these were approved projects in 2025 that just weren't completed. So in the presentation for December 1st, we anticipated what the carry forward might be. So the adjustments that you see here totaling 1.4 million, those are just changes to what we had previously anticipated. So there's no required, no additional funding required. It's just a change in how the carry forward of the previous year's budget is.
So December was anticipated, these are actual.
They're actual they're more up to date. So further spending, we may have anticipated spending more in December than we actually did. So we're adjusting the carry forward. Right, exactly. So we're just adjusting the carry forward for these projects so that we have a more accurate reflection of the budget for managers as they go into the next year. So there's no changes to the project. It's just simply the year-end adjustment and split between 2025 and 2026. So there's several adjustments here just to reflect. Yes, of course.
So what this is adjustment based on spending that on these projects after we had given, here's where we expect them to be. In other words, the projects are moving themselves forward. And as at year end, they will be where they are with the budgets approved and the spending now where it needs to be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just to reflect more accurately how we spent on those projects to the end of December.
Thanks, Krista.
No problem. So then if we look at the next column, which were budget changes, this is on the next slide. Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And this was already presented to council back in November. It's a project that was already in the 2025 budget. We had anticipated spending some money to the end of December. We didn't, so we had the 71,000 carrying forward. So that was the full 2025 year budget. And then the additional that was approved by council on November 24th of $11,350 for a total 2026 budget of 87,800. And this is, I don't know if I mentioned, it's the Wallinger Ave East Utility and Road Encroachment Project. And then if we look at the next slide, which represents a new addition, this was also previously presented to council as a grant application through the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, and it's for the acquisition of urban interface fire protection equipment. And we're just being proactive in, even though the grant application is still pending, we don't have a decision on it yet. We're including the project so that it gets in the 5-year financial plan to represent the commitment of funds.
What happens with this one if we don't get the grant?
We can do this is a grant dependent project, so we could do an amendment just to remove the project.
Right, okay. That makes sense, Will? Yep.
And then a further note on the capital side, it was just a funding modification, which is detailed on the next slide. And then this is pertaining to the Civic Center chiller replacement. The application to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings grant program was unsuccessful. So in this case, we needed to do a funding modification. Council had already approved in the event that the application was denied, that the funds that were previously applied for under the grant application, that the funding be altered to come from the Growing Communities Fund. So that's what I've represented here, that rather than that 1,097,600 coming from the grant revenue, it will now be coming from the Growing Communities Fund.
When I first saw that grant was rejected, I got quite fussed. Given the history in a number of other communities with these old chillers, including Fernie, probably the closest to home here a few years ago. I can't quite fathom why this grant application was reduced. However, the Growing Communities Fund, as council may remember, was a $3.4 million freebie that we got in anticipation of this type of spending. So the fact that we have to take this out of the Growing Communities Fund, is probably not an unreasonable thing. I'm just thankful that given we got that Growing Communities Fund, 2 years ago? At least, might have been 3 years ago, that we still have the money there to be able to have the flexibility to do this. So, yeah, anyway, just comment.
Yes, excellent. So if council agrees that we have a requested direction here from council to approve those previous adjustments presented here tonight.
Yeah. All right. So the motion on the floor is that council approve for inclusion in the 26 to 30 5-year financial plan proposed adjustments to the 2026 capital project plan as described in the staff report. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried.
Thank you. So now if we take a look at the non-capital project side of things, this table is showing that we had previously approved 2.1 million for all funds, the water, sewer in general. We had, again, some carry forward adjustments to reflect spending to December 31st. A proposed budget change to a project that was already included in the plan, plus several new additions that we're going to go into detail in the next few slides. So if we first take a look at the carry forward adjustments, again, these are projects that were already included in the 2025 plan. They weren't completed. So we're carrying forward the difference. And these are adjustments to reflect differences or changes from what was approved in the December 1st non-capital plan. So that's an adjustment of a net adjustment of 185,000. So again, no additional funding was required. It's just carrying forward what was already approved into 2026.
Any questions about any of those projects, council? On next page. Okay. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, so on the next slide is what is one of the budget changes of a project that was previously approved. And this was for accounting software. We had a previously approved budget of 100,000, which was going to span 2 years over 2026 and 2027. And as we are going through the preliminary research for softwares that are out there, we're realizing that the previously proposed budget is the true implementation costs of a software of this nature are significantly higher than what was previously anticipated. So, and that's primarily due to the complexity of implementing this type of software, ensuring that the data is migrated properly, and making sure it's configured and set up in a way that will set us up for the long term, basically. Our current software has been in place since 1999, so it's potential to exist for a long time. So we want to make sure that it's set up properly and we'll find efficiencies over the term.
Councilor McBain.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just curious about, like, I appreciate, software complexities and implementation, everything, but when we were going through the budget, I guess where was the miss? Did we just was it like a kind of off the corner of our desk guess at this budget, or?
Yeah, it was a preliminary estimate until we can really meet with different software vendors and get a better idea and see how other municipalities, maybe the information that they're gathering. That's when we start to see, oh, this is, the cost of everything is rising and the length of time to implement it. So yes, unfortunately, it's greater.
Okay, I think the lesson learned here, just as a follow-up, is just before we go in and put a budget forward, maybe just a little deeper dive to get a better idea. I mean, because this is if this was $25,000, we probably wouldn't have too much heartburn over this, but this is a significant change, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask a question. So yeah, thanks, Krista.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those comments.
So for context as well, the regional district is several months ahead of us on doing exactly the same thing. And at the last board meeting, there was a budget presentation or through the budget process presentation. And they've gone through, they did a competitive process. There were a number of vendors, and the software that they had chosen is actually the implementation is a little bit more than what we've built into the budget here. So my guess is that, you know, Dave and the IT guys have implemented a lot of software here at City Hall over the last while. Probably went with kind of what the averages were for what's been implemented. But the majority of the work here, this isn't for the cost of the software. This is for the actual implementation, which means the migration of data from the existing system over to the new one. And it is, it's not for the faint of heart. So, but I completely agree, Councilor McBain. I think, you know, I think that context around, you know, where these numbers end up is important for us because we certainly aren't experts on software implementations. So, yeah, thanks for those comments.
Add to that briefly, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is with something like this, I mean, with if you're purchasing a grader, for example, I mean, you call the vendor and find out what that is. But the fact is with something like this, until we put out the RFP, select a vendor, provide them with the amount of data that we have, the current system that we're using, like I guarantee that the number's not going to end up where this is. So, I mean, it is a placeholder. We want to have something in there that is based on the best information we have available at the time. And hopefully this is on the high side, and it'll come in under that, and anything remaining will just stay in the reserve for to be spent on something else.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to, you know, pick this apart or anything. I think, you know, with things like this, I think the key is, and Krista, I appreciate the explanation is really making sure that we've got, you know, good descriptions and good, you know, good public information so that they can understand where that money's going. Cause it's a big chunk. And if you just, you know, everybody can understand what the grader does, but these systems tend to get more complex. So that, you know, when we have an item like this where it's a big ticket and you know, there's some complexity to it, you know, the more we can provide, the better. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this next table is showing what the new proposed non-capital projects are since December 2nd or December 1st that have come up. And those total $258,945. So let's go into more detail on the next few slides here. The first project on the list is the Marysville Arena chiller inspection, and this is valued at $25,000. Maurice, if we can go on to the next slide. It's valued at $25,000, and it's the result of an audit that was completed in November 2025, where Technical Safety BC is requiring a full inspection of the chiller prior to the next season. We also have an update to the GIS enterprise environment, where it adds a separate development testing environment and improves resiliency and prevents service interruptions. And both of these projects are, that's valued at $15,500, and both of these are proposed to come from the general operating capital reserve. We go on to the next slide. We have the IT securities consulting, and this is to enhance network security by updating policies, tightening settings, and performing penetration testing to identify vulnerabilities. So we just have it split. The total is $10,750 and split almost equally between those two initiatives. And then we also have the economic development capacity review. This was previously presented in front of council as part of a grant application. And the total cost of this project is $55,000, where it would be anticipated that $50,000 would be funded by the grant and $5,000 would come from the general operating capital reserve. And it's proposed to assess Kimberley's economic development readiness, identify sector opportunities, and outline strategies to strengthen capacity. And if we go on to the next slide, we have the internal external communication plan. This is valued at $30,000 and will develop coordinated communication strategies to improve internal communication and external engagement with residents, businesses, and stakeholders. And a third-party complaint review valued at $30,000, which will fund external parties to review two policy-related complaints brought forward by a council member in November 2025. The budget is an estimate based on similar reviews in other BC municipalities. And both initiatives are proposed to be funded from the General Operating Capital Reserve.
So Krista, on the communications plan, we have come so far. Pam, you've done a lot of spade work to kind of get us from, you know, the dark ages into where we are. What's interesting though is that for certain segments of the community, it's never quite good enough. We continue to get, you know, lots of complaints about communication, and these will continue to come forward with upgrades to what we're doing. And the order of the day is incremental improvement. We'll just keep improving communication as best we can. And I just want to make the comment that we are so far ahead of where we've been in the not too distant past that, yeah, we're on a pretty good path with respect to communication. Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
I'll echo that, but I'll take it a little step further too, especially, you know, when we, as councillors, get these, you know, suggestions, I'll call them, or complaints or whatever. You know, we can help Pam by pointing out, you know, the relative ease of obtaining information. You have to put a little bit of effort into to try to find some of this stuff. So, you know, I wholeheartedly agree. I think I thought the city did a pretty good job years and years ago, and then when Pam came, I agreed. It's improved so much. But yeah, there's a part on residents as well to, you know, to do their part to look for things. So I agree 100%. Kudos to Pam, and hopefully when folks have questions, they, instead of coming and complaining first, they dig a little bit and find what they need.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we have the, and in this case here, we have the third-party resources council code of conduct application valued at $25,000. And I had incorrectly noted here it was coming from the General Operating Capital Reserve, but that's an error. It should be grant revenue instead. And this was a council authorized application to the Responsible Administration Fund for $25,000 to support third-party consulting assistance related to the council code of conduct.
So just to be clear then, assuming we get this grant, that will be used to offset the previous item, the $30,000 item?
I can
Go
speak
ahead.
to that. So
Yeah.
the purpose of the application was so that we could engage a consultant, potentially a lawyer, to have some facilitated sessions with council on codes of conduct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and I think if we do end up getting the full $25,000, I don't anticipate that, you know, getting somebody in like that would cost that. So I think we could, I've actually got an email into the executive director of LGMA to ask the question about if we could use the balance to offset a portion of the other
Right,
costs
okay,
there.
cool. Thank you.
Okay, and on the next slide, we have the last few items, and these were council approved one-time 2026 non-capital project expenditures tied to addressing organizational capacity constraints, including leadership workshops and roles and responsibility review. The funding would also include office furniture and equipment for 2 new positions, and we'll go into greater detail on that piece on the operating budget side of things. But the proposed funding source for all of these items would be the General Operating Capital Reserve. And these additions were formally approved by council at the February 9th, 2026 meeting and are proposed to be incorporated into year one of the financial plan.
So that brings us to the next motion, which is that council approve for inclusion in the 26 to 30 5-year financial plan, proposed adjustments to the 2026 non-capital project plan as outlined in the staff report. Mover, Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any further discussion?
I don't.
No, I don't. Is your hand up, Woody? No. So I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Excellent, thank you. The next piece we'll be going into is the operating budget side of things. And on the next slide, I've just given a summary of what council has already reviewed and approved on the next slide. And this is just a summary of the November 17th meeting and decisions that were made, and most of them pertain to our utility user rates, water, sewer, garbage, and recycling and organics, plus some decisions regarding the flat tax levy, decreasing the improved properties and increasing the unimproved property flat tax levy. And then on the next couple slides, I've provided in detail the decisions that were council made regarding at the last budget meeting on January 19th, 2026. And they pertain to the light industrial tax, increasing it, the property tax collection from light industrial properties by 10%, more than the other property classes, with the revenue being offset within the residential property tax collection. And then the capturing all of the adjustments proposed for the operating base budget. And on the next couple slides here, we'll refer to what those adjustments in detail were. We also had a resolution to transfer funds from the RCMP contract reserve to fund the increase for 2026, as we anticipate a surplus in 2025. The establishment, on the next slide, I have the establishment of an election reserve, and this is to smooth out the expense over 4 years rather than having a large lump sum adjustment every 4 years. So this will just smooth out that we'll have equal contributions to a reserve each year and then withdraw it in the year of an election. And then the last one was to bring the property insurance premium cost recovery to the full 100% reported amount through the Municipal Insurance Association, with half, taking a phased approach. We bill the 50% in the first year and then get to the full 100% in the following year, 2027. So those were the resolutions from the last budget meeting. So if we take a look at the next table, this details all those adjustments.
Krista, pardon me for interrupting. Just before you move on to that next slide, for anybody listening on our YouTube channel, you may have noticed, and I'd like to point out that the full report and detail of this, we're going through it relatively quickly here, but you can get the full report on our website under the Engage Kimberley links. The full report is there for anybody who wants to review it in detail.
Yes, thank you very much. So the next table, this is a detail of those adjustments that were reflected in that second resolution on the previous slides, where and included in the report that's available on Engage Kimberley. But I just wanted to give a reminder of what that looked like at the end of the January 19th meeting. So we started out with a 1.46% adjustment. That was what was already included in the 5-year financial plan in year 2. So we already had a base budget adjustment of $210,021, which represents a 1.46%, plus these adjustments council approved at the previous meeting and how those impacted, which totaled an additional $108,426. That was the net amount. which added 0.75 to the 1.46 already included in the 5-year financial plan, bringing us to a 2.21 property tax increase for 2026. So that's where we left off on January 19th. The next slide shows what we're proposing for additional adjustments for 2026. The first one being $140,307 for the capacity restraints review outcomes that I previously mentioned on the non-capital side. So we'll look at that in greater detail on the next slide. And then an external request from the Kimberley Public Library of $7,064, which I provided more detail on as well. So if we look at the outcomes for the ongoing capacity restraints review, on February 9th, Council approved recommendations to address organizational capacity restraints, including new staffing and restructuring initiatives. Additions include a new exempt position, restructuring of the bylaw enforcement department, which include adding a bylaw enforcement officer and supporting a senior position for a senior bylaw officer, as well as expanded finance staffing resources. And the table there details how each of those impact the 2026 budget and the correlating property tax impact. So all of them together total a 0.97% increase to the 2026 property tax collection. And all of those changes are proposed to be effective July 1st of 2026. And then we have the Kimberley Public Library at the January 26th meeting. They presented their 2026 budget. It included a 5% increase, which exceeds the 1.5% previously built into the financial plan. Council approved the library's budget in accordance with the Library Act, which results in an additional $7,064 contribution. And that corresponds to a 0.05% property tax impact for 2026. So if we take the approved adjustments from the January 19th meeting, plus the ones proposed here, the next slide, we see that we have that 2.21 from the previous meeting, plus the 0.97 and the 0.05. Getting us to a 3.23% tax increase for 2026. And that represents on the average assessed value single family dwelling in Kimberley, that represents a $100.20 adjustment based on the completed roll. And that's about $8.35 per month.
Council, any questions at this point? So I've got a couple of comments, if I may. I think without a doubt, certainly for me, this was one of the more complex exercises, budget exercises, I think we've had to go through, both in terms of additions and deletions and, incrementality. It's ended up being relatively complex. And if we take a look at inflation, which is 2%, we don't have a line item in here on inflation, but we know that inflation is about 2%, plus or minus a couple of points. And we have added 1.5% for the infrastructure fund. You'll recall last year council is doing 1.5% a year to add to infrastructure. The combination of those two are 3.5%. Before we even got into any of these adjustments. And so for us to end up at 3.23% at this point, I don't know, I look at that and I consider it to be a bit of a minor miracle, to be honest. There is a lot of really positive incrementality that we're seeing in this budget, incremental improvement that we're seeing in the budget. That's important, not just from a productivity, staff productivity and a service level point of view, but also for staff and them being able to have the tools and the room to be able to get their job done. And the balance that staff has shown in being able to take savings where they were available to offset, these other expenses. I just want to say, great job. I'm really impressed with where we ended up, given everything that has been under consideration. Just great job, Krista.
No, and I attribute a lot of that to staff as well, and I appreciate their help in helping us get to this point.
You bet. Now, we're still not done. We still have, a couple of things that could come in based on what you see. We don't have the year end done yet, but once that year end is done, are you anticipating, and maybe I should throw this question over to Jim, are you anticipating anything additional on top of that 3.23 that, we should either anticipate or be aware of?
Nothing we can confirm at this point in time. I don't think anything big is on the horizon that we need to be concerned about.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the next two slides are just a representation of how this increase impacts the financial plan of the existing financial plan. So that first column there, the 2026 base budget, is what we see currently in the our current 5-year financial plan, year 2 of that plan. And then the 2026 proposed changes collectively from tonight, the decisions that are proposed tonight, as well as from the January 19th meeting, and how those will reflect in the financial plan based on the distribution amongst revenue and expenditures in their related category.
It's going to be nice to get out from underneath that wastewater treatment plant. Just about every line item that we put in for it distorts, numbers from kind of where they would normally be.
Yeah.
The numbers are just pretty big. Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just been querying in my mind since Christmas time, what kind of an impact we might see to the financial statement based on the fire and the destruction of some of the equipment and how we may need to replace it and whether or not it's all insured and so on. So I'm just wondering if other people are thinking the same way about it, just in wonder about how that leaves us. Maybe you could comment on that a bit, Jim.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, it's funny. As you were saying that I was thinking about the mayor's question about things that may impact the budget. And the fire in particular, we're still kind of waiting on the full-on results of the insurance work that's going on behind the scenes. That's not going to affect the operating budget, won't affect the tax rates, but as far as the equipment goes, the insurance we're anticipating is going to cover all of the cost of that. The building itself, the insurance will cover the replacement of what was there. If we want to make any enhancements to that, for example, if we wanted to tack some office space onto the side of that building, that would be over and above, which would mean an additional capital expenditure in the plan here. So yeah, that is something that's still out there and not confirmed at this point.
Thanks for that, Councillor Roberts.
Okay, so the next slide shows the resolutions that we're seeking direction on this evening.
All right, and that would be that council approve for inclusion in the 26 to 35-year financial plan, the proposed adjustments to the 2026 general operating base budget as outlined in the staff report. Councillor Cairns moves, Councillor McBain seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried.
And we had the following 3 resolutions as well.
All right, first is that property tax collections in 2026 be increased by 0.75% from 2025 levels to fund the adjustments related to the internal budget requests as approved at the January 19th special budget meeting. Councillor Fox moves, Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. that property tax collections in 2026 be increased by 0.97% from 2025 levels to fund the adjustments related to the internal budget requests as approved at the February 17th special budget meeting. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, the council approved for inclusion in the 26 to 35-year financial plan bylaw, the Kimberley Public Library's external budget request for an additional $7,064, and that property tax collections in 2026 be increased by 0.05% to fund the additional contribution. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. So just for council's information, at the regional district meeting on last Friday, the budget meeting on Wednesday, the board approved an additional 5% increase in the contribution they are making to the public library. 2% of that they were going to get anyway as part of the annual increase, but the board approved the extra 3%. So yeah, that'll be good news for the library folks. The way the motion was laid out at that budget meeting, it looked like the library was asking for an additional $50,000. I got blank stares from most of the directors. But 50,000 is the level of funding that comes to our library from the regional district. So it's not insubstantial, and going up by 5% this year. Okay, anything further, Krista?
No, that is all on that piece. Thank you.
All right, council, last call for any comments.
Oh, we'll go to the next slide. We do have a little bit more to go through.
That's what I was asking.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This is in regards to the Aquatic Center parcel tax.
Ah, right.
So as a reminder, the purpose of the parcel tax was to fund the construction and operation of the Aquatic Center. Now that the construction debt is fully paid, it was paid off in 2025. The levy will be funding the operating deficits only. And annually, if there is any surplus, it would go into the Aquatic Center parcel tax reserve, which would then be used in the following year to reduce the levy. At the end of 2024, the reserve balance was $57,292, and that amount was budgeted to be withdrawn in 2025 to offset the parcel tax levy. So if we take a look at the anticipated results for 2025, it appears that the Aquatic Center will incur a deficit of $113,183. This is primarily the result of excess wage costs. So I've detailed on the next slide there the anticipated numbers for 2025. So we had revenue of $439,000, expenditures of $1.3 million. The debt payment that came off in 2025, that was the final one, which left us, we had a deficit of 1.1 million. The parcel tax collection offset that to get to the 113,000. And then the contribution from the parcel tax reserve reduces that again. So how this impacts the 2026 parcel tax, there will be no reserve funds remaining to reduce the 2026 levy. And because we had a deficit beyond the parcel tax contribution, reserve contribution, that deficit will be incorporated into the calculation for the 2026 levy. So if we look at the next slide, this is detailed as far as the calculation goes. We have the 2026 operating budget revenue and expenditures with the net amount being $934,000. Adding on that unfunded deficit from 2025 and dividing it by the number of parcels that are anticipated as in accordance with the 2026 completed roll. So that brings us to $210.11, which was a $5.62 decrease, $5.62 decrease from the 2025 parcel tax levy. And I've gone into further detail to show how we got to that $5.62 reduction on the next slide. So we knew that the debt was coming off for 2026, so that reduced it by approximately $40. But to offset that reduction, we do have to consider the budgeted inflation for the expenditures, the elimination of the reserve fund. We no longer have those funds available for 2026, the deficit from the prior year, and then a small adjustment to reflect the decrease in the number of parcels. The number of parcels in 2025 was 4,729. The anticipated parcels for 2026 is 4,716. This is just in accordance with the completed roll. We'll know the final numbers once the revised roll is released later in March. So we see we had started out at the $39.63 reduction. And I should clarify, oh yeah, I've got it in red there. The reserve, that was the reserve contribution, the $12.15 adjustment as well. So that brings us to the $5.62 reduction for 2026.
How do we lose parcels?
Yeah, it's anticipated that there'd be consolidations. I need to get the exact detail from BC Assessment as to.
Consolidation is.
Mhm. Well, and I would like to get the exact information from BC Assessment, which I don't have at this stage.
13 seats.
Mhm.
Council, question.
No, I mean, this is, I think, just something to consider for next round, and who knows, none of us may even be here. But yeah, it just seems to me, I appreciate, you know, that we are more than happy to, you know, basically, where taxpayers are subsidizing the operations of the aquatic center, but you know, I think it would be, and I'm sure Jim and staff will be thinking about it, but rate increases to keep up with wages and other operational costs. You know, I know it's a tough one, but it's something that definitely should be considered to try to keep that parcel tax as low as possible. So that's it. Just a comment.
Okay, right. So at this stage, we can't finalize this figure until we have the revised roll numbers. So I'll bring this information back with revised calculation once we have those counts for parcels. And then if we move on to the next piece, which is related to the wastewater treatment plant parcel tax, as we are getting closer and into the construction phase of the new wastewater treatment plant upgrade, we are looking at the cash flow analysis for the project. And it's becoming clear that the 2026 expenses will bring us close to our temporary borrowing limit, which means that we'll likely have to borrow sooner than anticipated, and we'll need the funds beginning in 2027. And as council may recall, the previous direction was that the debt payments be funded through a parcel tax. So with the earlier borrowing, long-term debt borrowing, the parcel tax will need to be implemented a year earlier as well. So I'll be bringing in a presentation to council on March 9th to go into greater detail. It'll coincide with an update on the project that the Senior Manager of Operations will be doing at that meeting as well. But until we have that information, we'll postpone the preparation of the financial plan until we have further direction from council.
I guess this question may be for Nick, but how does that an increase in spending correlate to progress on the project? Does it also mean that we're looking at getting finished a year earlier? What's the latest on that?
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean that we're directly going to be finishing a year earlier. We're still on track to be commissioning the plant in late summer, fall of 2028, which is kind of where we had initially planned with our validation back in the summer. But things are progressing as planned, and we're looking to mobilize here very soon, in the coming weeks, to start bringing site trailers and things like that, and construction hit the ground in April. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'll have a further, more detailed update March 9th, as Chris mentioned as well.
Excellent, thanks.
Again, so as I mentioned previously, our outstanding items are the revised assessment roll on the next slide here. So this, once we receive that, it'll impact some of the numbers that were presented previously. And then if any new information comes up between now and the approval of the financial plan bylaw, those will be presented to council as well. And then the next slide is just showing an itinerary of the next steps. So the March 9th will, I'll provide more information on the wastewater treatment plant debt and the parcel tax timing, and then propose to bring the bylaws for the financial plan, the tax rates, the flat tax amendment, parcel tax. We'll bring those on April 13th for adoption on April 27th.
So on that March 9th meeting, will we be talking about the estimated parcel tax at that time?
Yeah, I'll bring some of the more detail that can give an idea of the numbers.
Right, okay, awesome, thank you. Just want to make sure we're setting expectations early.
Right. Okay. I
End
think
of the slides.
That's end of the slides. Yes, thank you.
Anything further?
No, I would like to thank staff though, for their cooperation and help to get me to this point, and for all the presentations. It's, I know everyone's busy, but they allotted their time to help me get this work completed.
Excellent. All right, council, last call. Move adjournment. Council McBain moves and Councilor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? None opposed? We're done. Thanks, folks. And thanks to everybody watching in on our YouTube channel.